Játék pelettőjén és egy mai is kizsén és lé billigana bushashin, kinla chidi dashache billigana dashanale. Welcome back to another episode of Resball, where this time we're covering Clemson center Viktor Lakhin. This is kind of a draft darling, another guy of like maybe NBA draft hipster kind of vibe, but somebody that is later in the process, probably like March is when people started to really go to bat for Viktor Lakhin more, but again, somebody that maybe like 2 years ago, people started whispering about it. Now that whisper has thrown a scream. So let's get into Viktor Lakhin right about now. Viktor Lakhin was born in Anapa, Russia. Again, apologies to all my Russian speakers. I hope I'm doing you okay. So Viktor Lakhin born in Anapa, Russia. He spent 4 seasons at CSKA 2 Moscow, which is, I think, the junior division team for the CSKA team, and then got recruited by Cincinnati, ended up going in Cincinnati. The other things to look at are Viktor Lakhin was on the U16 FIBA roster and the U18 FIBA roster, which would be 2017 and 2019, respectively. And he was the leading scorer for some of those teams and also teammates with our guy, Vladislav Golden. So him and Vlad teammates on the FIBA U16, U18 teams. Go check those out too, just to see what Viktor Lakhin looks like in international play as well. I think it's a little bit different than what we're going to get into here with the stats, but somebody that has professional development, 4 seasons in a professional team in Russia, and then 2 seasons of FIBA international play, basically being the man for the Russian U16 and U18 team. So it is a good amount of experience to have, which Viktor Lakhin has a lot of experience. 4-year college player, 3 years at Cincinnati, and then this final season at Clemson, where he did help the Clemson Tigers to a 27-7 record. It's one of their better seasons in quite a while. And they've been good for the past 3 or 4 seasons. Unfortunately, they lost in the first round to McNeese State, which thanks a lot, guys. You were my sleeper pick in one of my brackets. So I do like that Clemson team. I really thought they'd make a deep run. But this past season at Clemson, Viktor Lakhin scored 11.4 points per game, pulled in 6.4 rebounds, had 1.5 assists per game, 1 steal per game, 1.5 block per game, and 1.5 turnovers per game. Shooting splits for Viktor Lakhin were 54.3% from 2-point range, 37.5% from 3-point range, and then 69.6% from the free throw line. All of this translates into a 57% true shooting percentage for Viktor Lakhin. And the one stat to really look at is 7.3 block percentage. That was one of the better block percentages in all of college basketball last season. A big reason why this Clemson squad was better overall in their season, 27-7, than previous teams, is partially due to Viktor Lakhin. I mean, the main two things that we're going to argue for with Viktor Lakhin, and it's not just me, it's most people that are going to go to bat for him. Number one is that shot blocking ability, and it's not just being packed in the paint. Again, 1 steal per game, and what did I say, 1.5 block per game. Yeah, 1 steal per game, 1.5 block per game. The totals for that were 35 steals to 50 blocks. This is somebody that can switch. I think that's probably Viktor Lakhin's number one skill set. Is this guy can get out and switch at the center position. He's going to get steals, and he's going to be a really, really good rim protector. We'll kind of cycle back to the Cincinnati days as well, too, because the last 2 seasons, the junior and sophomore season, kind of up and down, but I do think it helps paint the picture, and especially with the defensive side where it's like, okay, I would buy into Viktor Lakhin there. At the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament, Viktor Lakhin measured in at 6'11.5" without shoes. So we're looking at a 7 feet dude. And I believe Viktor was listed at like 6'11". Yeah, I saw him listed at 6'11" most of the year. So I was expecting like 6'10". So 6'11 and a half inch without shoes means he's a legitimate 7 feet tall, weighing in at 252 pounds, which is also bigger than what I thought he would be. I kept hearing 220, 230. So taller, heavier than what he normally showed up at, and then 7 feet and 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches wingspan. So 7 feet, 1.5 inches wingspan. The wingspan, again, a little disappointing anytime it's close to 1-to-1. This is like a 7 feet guy with 7 foot and a half, 1.5 inch wingspan. But this is a case where you can see he's maximizing the tools and the production continues to show. The 252, I don't know if that's concerning. Again, if you look at Basketball Reference, 6'11", 228. I have not looked at Clemson's websites. So if you're listening to this on YouTube, I'm actually looking it up right now to see what Clemson listed him at. So Clemson listed Viktor Lakhin at, see where the measurements are here. Doesn't quite show. Let's go to the roster page and see if we get measurements there. Yeah, where's our guy Victor here? And of course, it's only showing for this year. Let's go back one more season. And for Viktor Lakhin, 6'11", 245. So maybe theirs was closer to the 228 that I'd seen elsewhere. Anytime to me, like you see the weight discrepancy like that, I would definitely like want to know the conditioning. And obviously people are going to get Victor in for private workouts and stuff. I just want to flag it because for me anyway, it seemed like it was always 220. And then at the Portsmouth, it was 252. It's like, we're talking like 20 to 30 pound increase from what the normal listed weight was. How did he look? How was he in condition? Go back and listen to the NBA No Ceilings crew that was there. I know Jam was there, as Jam is always there at the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament. He's your number one source. So all Viktor Lakhin questions definitely should go to Jam and what he looked like. And if he seemed indifferent at 252 versus like 220 that he was listed at. So circling back again to Viktor Lakhin on defense. 2 seasons ago, I know Maxwell Bomback, shout out to Maxwell of NoCeilingsNBA.com, talked about Viktor Lakhin as a sleeper guy after his sophomore season. Pretty similar production, that 11.6 points per game for Viktor Lakhin and after his sophomore season at Cincinnati. 7.1 rebounds per game, half an assist, 1.2 steals, and 1.4 blocks per game. And then you look at the totals on that, it was 39 steals to 46 blocks. Pretty similar to what it was last year at Clemson, 35 steals, 50 blocks. The issue is in between then. The junior season at Cincinnati, getting this little bit of sleeper buzz, and then 29 games for Viktor Lakhin at Cincinnati in his junior season. 9.2 points per game, 6 rebounds, 1.7 assists, 0.6 steals, 0.8 blocks per game. And the totals were down significantly, 16 steals to 23 blocks. Like that tape definitely has to be looked at. I think probably that Cincinnati year 22 and 15 is what that team went there. I mean, it was led by Daniel Skillings Jr., Simon Slakocious, Day Thomas, and John Newman. And then Viktor Lakhin was like the fifth guy. Maybe you just say it's a down year. You know, people have that. But you would like to see consistency. And I think this is something that I probably didn't harp on enough earlier when I was getting into draft evaluation stuff. Shout out to James Barlow, Raphael Barlow. They always say, you know, as a freshman, you can get drafted off of flashes if they're good enough and potential, you know. As a sophomore, you have to show that you're improvement and can be a little bit more consistent. But by junior year, you have to dominate. And I think that is like something that is smart to consider when looking at upperclassmen. And just go look back in any successful upperclassmen that came into the draft and ended up being better than what people predicted or ended up being a solid NBA veteran. Most of them, if not all of them, by junior season are like dominant and have their clear skill set, even if it is just on one side of the ball, to where it's like, okay, this is clear. They've made their advancements for it. They know who they are. They've been in college basketball 2 years. Now they know how to get their stuff in to play their game, regardless of what the other team is doing. So that's a big thing with Viktor Lakhin is like that junior season does throw a little bit of a monkey wrench into like, okay, when he's relied upon to do a little bit more, like, why is it so down? The Clemson year is a good bounce back. Absolutely. But I mean, he came into a really good infrastructure already in this Clemson team. Chase Hunter, Ian Shefflin had been there, James Zachary, and then Chauncey Wiggins, the other forward, definitely a sleeper in the future, who's like 6'10" and a legitimate shooter. Dylan Hunter's there as well. Like there were just a lot of guys to where he didn't have to do too much, Viktor Lakhin, and could go back to just switching and work on his 3-point shot. Again, this is somebody that I'm not arguing for like up super duper high, but yeah, again, the upperclassman thing is something I'm always going to say now is like, okay, when you're there for a while And especially that junior senior season, if you take a significant dip in production, I question like what's going on with the development. I have Viktor Lakhin at 35, and part of it is I would want him to go higher. I would like to argue for him a little bit up higher just because I do believe in the defense and being able to switch like that and what we've seen at Cincinnati and then him bouncing back this year at Clemson. But that stuff is definitely something that knocks you out of the round one. There's something that does keep you in the high 30s, though, is 37.5% from three. And this is somebody that has like slowly but surely gotten more of a 3-point shot. 1 of 7 from three as a freshman for Viktor Lakhin. 2 of 4 from three as a sophomore. It's like this guy's not taking threes. I don't think he's ever going to be a shooter. Then junior season hits 14 of 54 from three, 25.9%. Obviously not good. But then senior year, 24 of 64, 37.5%. While also having a career high from three, 37.5%. He also had a career high from the free throw line at 69.6%. This is probably lesser than the Newell one of like, hey, look at this production because as a freshman versus a senior. Also, again, this Clemson team, if you've followed them since Brown Burnell has been the head coach there, that's one of the things they're really known for is just being able to bomb away from three and having a bunch of good shooters. The percentages might not be there every year, but it's a big thing in their system. And I do think Viktor Lakhin did really benefit from that. And it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you're like, I'm glad he went to a situation where he can improve his stretch abilities and help him with the team to where he doesn't have to be relied upon to do it. But on the other hand, it's like, okay, how much of these numbers are being propped up by a team and a system that we already know works for a lot of other dudes? So it really depends on where you want to fall into that camp. I'm leaning a little bit more towards the like, I think the shooting is going to be something that's there. Let's look at the shot chart. If you remember from the last 2 times Derek Queen Austin duel and you watch this on YouTube, Viktor Lakhin's the only guy who has anything other than blue from three. Part of the reason why I buy into him from three. 1 of 1 from the corners, didn't shoot from the corners, but 23 of 63 on above the break threes. Good percentage there. And if you break it more into the medium zones, 5 of 12 from left wing, 41.7%. 14 of 45 from top of the key, 31.1%. And then 4 of 6 from the right wing, 66.7%. That 31.1% at top of the key, it's his lowest of the bunch and the shot he took the most. But I think the more positive takeaway from it for me is like he kept taking them. He became more comfortable with it. It became a staple part of the offense that, hey, we can get picked here at top of the key. And this does indicate like somebody that you want to continue to develop that to play 5 out because he's willing to do it and he's built up the confidence to have to be able to do it. The other thing that makes me believe in a Viktor Lakhin, 16 total shots in the mid-range. So it's not like he developed quote unquote a jumper and then went buck wild with it. And that's not really ever been a thing for Viktor Lakhin as well. You're not going to have to make him unlearn bad habits. Does have a very similar kind of shot chart to Austin Newell where it's like he's mainly shooting in the paint. He's mainly shooting at the rim and then everything else comes from three and the 3-point shot is getting better. 37 of 78 shots at the rim for a Viktor Lakhin, which is 47.4%. Good percentage there. I think he has okay touch here. A couple different moves to get his shot off in the paint, more of like basic hooks and stuff. The main concern, and again, another reason why Viktor Lakhin gets bumped out of round one for me is 83 of 138 shots at the rim, 60.1%. If you're not watching on YouTube, this is the only guy out of this 3-guy sample, Derek Queen, Austin Newell, Viktor Lakhin, that's blue. Like 60.1% at the rim is not good for a center. I don't want to say Viktor Lakhin's a bad athlete. I think fluid is the way to describe him. It's why on defense he can switch and why he can hang and you see the versatility there, but not an explosive dude. Not somebody that's going to really dunk very often. I think it's only really in transition. Even when he has a clear lane to the rim, like you don't see it. Definitely not a lob threat. So that's where the struggles come is like, okay, not somebody who's super bouncy that can just dunk like Austin Newell can at will. Not somebody that even is the Jerry Rice athlete who like kicks it in another gear when he's in the game. If you can get another big dude on him in there, it's going to be a hard time. And part of the reason why I think the jumper became more of a thing for him to develop is realizing this of like, that's not necessarily my strength. If I'm going to make money in the NBA or make a roster in the NBA, really I need to develop my jumper. So that's the big part about it. And I don't want to sell Viktor Lakhin short, but I do think offensively limited, and he's going to get less rain. Realistically, he could go undrafted, especially for a team that's like, nah, we need our centers to shoot better than that. Nah, we need our centers to, have a more stable 3-point game if we're going to buy into them. From three is a stretch big. I would understand that. And so he's going to have to really figure out, okay, how am I going to get more efficient at this? And that's probably the final thing for me of like the efficiency is all over the place. 54.9% as a freshman, 317 minutes or like whatever. Got more minutes as a sophomore, 777, 61.6% true shooting. Like, okay, great. No wonder why so many people went to bat for him there. Like, oh, look, the shot might be there. Oh, look at how great his block and steal numbers are. Oh, he's super efficient. And then from the junior year, 54 true shooting percentage. So you're like, oh, maybe that's a 1-year wonder guy. And then here, even at Clemson as a senior, stretching the floor out more and all that, 57.1%. I want to be clear, 57.1% isn't necessarily bad, but this is somebody you're arguing for as a role player. If you draft him like more in the rotation at the back end, and probably even long-term NBA at the very ceiling is an NBA rotation piece, like 57.1% isn't going to cut it. And those rim numbers really drag the percentage down. The difference between somebody like Austin Newell here and the Viktor Lakhin, besides age, if you just look at the game, is that it's like Asa finishes everything at the rim, and you don't have a concern to where you're like, sure, I would like the 3-point shot to fall, and sure, I argued for it, but even if it doesn't fall, like he's still an elite finisher and rim runner, and you're totally fine with that player, and that guy always earns a job in the NBA. I mean, like Nick Claxton has a little bit more passing than that, but even without the passing, like you need that guy always. I know Jackson Hayes hasn't lived up to the draft position, but that's more on the Pelicans drafting him about where he probably should. But he's going to have a long career in the NBA, and like a DeAndre Jordan. The reason why he stayed around for so long is being able to just be an elite finisher. Again, Viktor Lakhin's not that kind of an athlete. So that's where it falls in. It's just like there's a lot of questions. And I think a lot of them stem from this junior season is like, okay, man, you got to tell me like where you're hurt. Is this just a season where like you wanted to do more on offense and you got a little bit more run in the offense and then that kind of changed? Like what's going on with that junior season and what do you think is the difference between the sophomore and senior seasons where we see like a clear more role player type versus the junior year where it's like, man, this is really inefficient. And I know there's not, to me, honestly, there's not many players that actually have the like, well, the 3-point shot is the swing skill. Because again, in today's NBA, I think there's just too many guys that get that stamp. But this is one where I do think if the three, you really buy into the 3-point shot and feel like he can even just be a capable shooter, as Jam says, which means he just has to be guarded. We're talking like 33 to 36% from three on decent volume, then yeah, the defense will stand out and the defense you can buy into to where 7.3% block percentage. And you saw the clear difference he made with this Clemson team, even as a role player. It's like that's worth investing in. And also going back to the FIBA play, this is somebody that has professional experience over in Russia as well in that development system. Like you just buy into all of those kind of things. And Viktor Lakhin is somebody that, yeah, absolutely flashes this good role player potential. I think it's really hard to find a big that can switch like this at the very minimum. And that is something that you would want to invest in. Again, throw out everything else. You're like, okay, I don't know about these finishing concerns. Like, I don't want to buy into the upside there. I don't think he really has a 3-point shot. It's like, well, he still is a very good switch defender. I just watched the full season of Paul Reed on the Pistons where he didn't do much other than, come in when Isaiah Stewart was hurt, come in when Jalen Duren missed time, but he still always, always, always shows the NBA. I can get out here because of my attitude, because I can switch. I'm solid on defense. I will block shots. I will get steals and make plays on defense. And even his 3-point shot, like Philly last year, it seemed good. This year in Detroit, they really didn't let him take it, but he still fired away from three and hit enough of them that when he's in there, people are like, oh my gosh, this is such a different look that we got to account for this guy. Paul Reed isn't the comp for me though. I think it's more Noah Clowney. Noah Clowney is a more bouncy athlete, but I think that Victor Larkin's still fluid like this. And if you want to buy into him, it's mainly as a stretch big, where you're like, I can play him at power forward, I can play him at center, and because he has that ability to switch and he has the ability to protect the rim either from being the center or being like a more weak side, then it gives me a little bit more flexibility of who plays next to him. Sure, he can play next to a Cam Johnson type of guy. He can play next to like a Carl Anthony Towns or something like that. That's really where the money lies, I think. And it's that same thing with Noah Clowney, and why I think Noah Clowney got drafted as high as he did. Is like we buy into that. Hopefully, we're getting fingers crossed the shooting works, because Noah Clowney didn't exactly put up stellar 3-point numbers, but it's getting there bit by bit, and the jumper and the form look fine to where you're not, throwing it out and like, whoa, this form and everything looks kind of brutal. I think it's all that same thing with the Viktor Lakhin. A little bit less of an athlete, not the, oh my gosh, eye popping, look at that combine performance kind of guy. If Noah Clowney doesn't have that, then he probably gets dropped down to number 35, which is right around where I have a Viktor Lakhin there. So some things to look at for Viktor Lakhin. ACC Digital Network probably has the most Viktor Lakhin things there. Again, the ACC Digital Network did a great job with pretty much all the guys that will be drafted or have been in draft discussions, putting together highlight packages, making sure to put out games on them there. So ACC Digital Network, check that out. College Basketball Scouting has a nice scouting highlights on Viktor Lakhin, about 7 minutes, 50 seconds. Finally, the return of Hardwood Hoop Central's NBA Draft Green Room. 2 hours, 31 minutes, 29 seconds. They have the comprehensive Viktor Lakhin workout. And again, it's kind of the NBA draft, or what did I call it? NBA draft hipster kind of pick guy. But great stuff to look at here. And then the other one, and if you wanted to, I think there's not many guys that this is going to happen to, where you find scouting reports from them across multiple years, and NBA draft scouting reports across multiple years on multiple teams. College Basketball Scouting has one from about a year ago on Viktor Lakhin in the transfer portal and their scouting highlights. So I would definitely go look at both of those, and especially that junior season, because this is after the junior season, to see what does he look like here versus what does he look like now, and to try and fit it in the context of Clemson. And if you're like, okay, maybe Clemson boosted him up more, maybe this other one boosted him up more, it's definitely good to look at. The other one I do want to highlight here, I got to go into my own history and Viktor Lakhin. Let's go here, because you kind of got to dig for this one. It was done in Clemson, one of the Clemson media. Yeah. So this is from the Clemson Tigers. Clemson Tigers is what the YouTube channel is. And it's titled Viktor Lakhin's Incredible Journey to America. Definitely worth a listen to hear about Viktor coming from Russia and the difficulties of trying to just get an appointment to get a visa and to be able to come over here. So one of those other things that it should stay. Hopefully our current administration doesn't ruin this, but fantastic being able to have this opportunity as an immigrant to come across here to America to chase his basketball dreams and earn an education at Cincinnati and at Clemson. So Viktor Lakhin's Incredible Journey to America from the Clemson Tiger YouTube channel. Go check that out. Absolutely great interview. About 11 minutes and 10 seconds, so check it out. Yeah, thank you so much for listening to us. Next time we'll return. I'm hemming and hawing on what to do next in terms of the position group. Probably will return to the center position again. I didn't think I would do this many centers, but this is kind of how the draft shook out, I think, for after the lottery, end of the lottery. But maybe too, I might do something else. You never know. We'll see what happens next time. Yeah, thank you for listening to us. I'm going to